Welcome to the Great People Show, your guide to greatness, your GPS to excellence. Here's your host, J.J. White.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Great People Show. I am your host, J.J. White, and he's back in the Great People Studio. Our co-host, Big Daddy James Muncie. Good morning, James.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Man, it's good to see you.
I'm
big
glad
question
to be
is,
back.
how are you doing?
I'm okay. You know, I learned what it's like to be admitted to the hospital, so that's
Okay.
we can say that's off. I don't know if it's a bucket list item, but that's off the list. I'm good. I don't need to do it again.
Folks, we drive people beyond their upper limits here on the show.
That's right.
It's so grueling. It's so exhausting. It's so out of your comfort zone on the Great People Show that sometimes it just sends you straight to the hospital.
That's what happened.
So we're glad to have you here with us on this Thanksgiving week. Today's topic, today's show, we have given it a title. It's called No Thanksgiving.
Sounds really down, JJ.
It's going to be down. It's going to be down because our show will meet many people where they are, not necessarily where we want them to be. And last week, this is that obligatory conversation that you have with most people right before the holidays. Mm-hmm. So what are your big plans for Thanksgiving? You traveling? You know, these questions and conversations you get into. And I was so surprised how many people were not really looking forward to Thanksgiving for various reasons. Let's have an obligatory conversation. What are your plans for Thanksgiving, and are you looking forward to it?
Thanksgiving for me, I don't look forward to Thanksgiving. I look forward to Thanksgiving because for me, it's the beginning of the holiday season, and I look forward to Christmas. Thanksgiving for me is not a day I look forward to. We usually have it at our house, which means we're having lots of company, which means we have to clean and we have to cook and we have to, get everything just right. And I hate to sound negative on it, but no, I'm not a huge fan of Thanksgiving. I like the idea of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But no, I'm having a bunch of family over, which always creates an interesting dynamic.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
The interesting dynamic between you and all the people you get surrounded with Thanksgiving.
That's right.
I think this is probably one of the main drivers for the challenge that people have. Mm-hmm. My is that a second person grammatical error? I don't know.
I'd have to, yeah.
Is that a pronoun or an adverb? I have no idea. I didn't do very well at that in school.
Me neither.
So now I talk for a living. And whenever I was talking to a lot of people last week, the big topic of discussion was, I've got to be around my Uncle Bob. He's a raging alcoholic. And
Everybody's
he just
got an
shows
Uncle Bob.
himself. And I just don't want to have to deal with it. Some startling statistics here. According to two economists from UCLA and Washington State University, politically divided families actually cut short their Thanksgiving dinners last year rather than wrangle over the table. Now, keep in mind, this was right after Trump got elected. So I cannot imagine what some of those Thanksgiving dinners look like. Our results suggest partisan differences cost American families 62 million person hours of Thanksgiving time, the pair wrote. So it's not necessarily the fact that this time with family isn't as quality as it could be. It's the fact that people just ignore it. They avoid it. They show up, do their thing, and we got to go home and catch a football game. We'll see ya.
That's interesting.
Kids are getting tired. 2 p.m. Right.
Right.
And so it just started. It started to kind of wear on my heart a little bit. I was like, wow, this should be like a time in our society. We are at a time in our society where there's really never been a moment in history where we had more to be thankful for, right? I mean, literally, as a society, we just grow and enrich ourselves more and more. There's more wealth in every country. Everything just seems to be growing just a little bit better every year. Why in the world aren't we more thankful for it? And I think we end up in this axiom that the more we have and the more that we surround ourselves. We talked last week in your absence, by the way, about how we build so much comfort in our life that whenever we get into these situations with family that we don't necessarily want to be around, we again avoid it in order to be more comfortable in life. Yeah. And that's sad. Like, it just saddened me. And you mentioned this topic is going to be downer. I was down over this topic. Mm-hmm. That's why we need to talk about it on today's show.
Yeah, and I think the whole avoiding family, that was a great topic. And I think we do it, JJ, because it's easier, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to avoid it than to confront what may be a difficult or upsetting situation.
Yeah. And I want to have a conversation about what I've been thinking about and reading about, especially around our show, is the term upper limits.
All right.
And I was recently exposed to this term and made me realize that everything we really talk about on the Great People Show has to do with our listeners' upper limits that are set in their life, and how 99.99% of the time we may go to those upper limits and then we stop and retract. That we're actually designed to pull ourselves back. That you're going into this Thanksgiving season with a mindset that's already keeping you from enjoying it more. Now, and I'm going to call a quick timeout, and then I'm going to get back to upper limits. You may already be thinking, well, this show really doesn't apply to me because I love Thanksgiving. I enjoy Thanksgiving. There's nothing about Thanksgiving I don't like. I have a question for you. Do you feel that every single person that you're spending time with right now in Thanksgiving feels the way that you do? And I doubt they do.
That is a great question.
You might not have any desire to worry about this topic right now because you think this doesn't apply to you. You are going to be encountering someone somewhere in your family, friends, your social network this week that is going through depression, that's going through social anxieties. They're holding grudges. Maybe they're holding a grudge against you and you don't even know it. So let's stop thinking so internally about this and maybe thinking externally about this. So I want to kind of set that as maybe our first upper limit around the holiday coming up. That you may not even realize the situation that you're walking into. And if you do feel, and we went to Facebook like we always do in social media over this topic, what's one thing that you are not looking forward to with the holidays? I was shocked how many people said spending time with my family.
Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, I can tell you, I have got family coming on Thanksgiving Day who I love very much, who have, you talk about the politics, who have the polar opposite political views that I do. And we tend to engage, and it can be stressful, and it can be a wall that kind of messes up our relationship.
You know, Ryan on Facebook Live just commented, I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving because I'm excited to see the family I haven't seen in a while. And I'm so glad to hear that. I wonder if not seeing family for a long time actually helps these situations because you don't have to see them that often, and you get to really appreciate. You can't take them for granted. Some of the people that I talked to this last week, it's some of the family they have to see regularly that they don't want to see anymore for various reasons. And we have a nice little laundry list because if you Google bad Thanksgiving, you'll get 6.4 million results.
Wow. So I guess you've done it.
That's alarming. Well, I was prepping for the show. I wanted to kind of find out what's the deal with these bad Thanksgivings. So we have a special Thanksgiving edition of the Great People Show. We're coming to you live from the Great People Studio on a special day. It's going to be recorded for radio in case you're catching us right now on 97.7 FM or 820 AM. We are being recorded, but you can reach us anytime during any moment by emailing me, JJ at Great People Show. When we come back, we're going to talk more about why we should not have no Thanksgiving. I mean, I know it's a double negative and it's a no-no, but we cannot allow this no Thanksgiving to keep going on in our lives.
We'll get it figured out here in a few minutes.
We are going to get it figured out. You're listening to The Great People Show.
Oh, I want something just like this.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm often asked, especially if you're watching us on Facebook Live, what in the world do y'all talk about during your breaks? Because we have these what look like deep, thoughtful conversations. And the only thing we talked about today was the fact that I have a new iPhone 10, and I was getting pelted with questions in the studio about how it works.
Well, Asher and I are very jealous.
You should be, because it's an absolutely amazing piece of technology.
Yeah.
And I would buy it all over again if I had to.
No kidding. Well,
It's amazing. It's
That's
amazing.
great.
I'm gonna show it off during Thanksgiving and make my entire family so jealous that they hate me. That's probably bad for our today's topic.
Probably so.
Yeah. So welcome back to the Great People Show, everyone. Today we're talking about no Thanksgiving because apparently there's this epidemic in the world that I wasn't really that aware of until I started asking questions and listening. That so many people are not really looking forward to Thanksgiving, and over the weekend, I received an email. This was a marketing email with the subject, "What's the perfect level of inebriation for dealing with your family?" Like this was an email that was being marketed to me as a value-based email, and it was a very thoughtful email. Actually, there are certain levels of drinks you should have to deal with family. It was in this article.
Yeah, specifically not too many.
Well, I'm probably going to screw this up because I didn't write it down or keep the article in front of me. But it said one is not enough, 2 is too many, and then 3 is not enough again. If you like that. So I initially thought it was funny, but I've learned with anything in life, when we laugh at something, it's because it's true, right? I mean, we look at it, we go, well, that just doesn't make sense. You read it and go, well, yeah, okay, I get you. But, so why? Why is this such an issue? Well, for various reasons. First of which, something's happened with family at some point in your career, or not in your career, in your life, that has caused a strained relationship, and you've distanced yourself from somebody, and now you have to face them again.
Absolutely. And I think you've got to recognize, too, that there are different levels of all this, JJ. I mean, there are those of us who have Uncle Bob who comes over and gets drunk, and he's just kind of a pain in the tail. And then there are people who have family members that might come that they've had some sort of traumatic event with that has had truly some deep-rooted issues, feelings, etc. So I think it runs the gamut.
Yeah.
I'm fortunately the first where, we growing up, we always had an Uncle Bob. For me, it was Uncle Herbie.
Oh, so he has a name. Okay.
Yeah, Uncle Herbie.
Yeah.
Great guy. And, but, Uncle Herbie was the family character,
keeping life interesting.
That's right. And he only came around for holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was an interesting guy. Lived into his 70s, never married. He was the family character.
So he used Thanksgiving as a way to vent for the rest of the year, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I was a little kid through most of, when I knew him, but he was just very different from everybody else.
Yeah. I'm curious if James, you or Asher have seen this video that's been circulating on Facebook for a good year or maybe 2 of a young man in the basement of his house for Thanksgiving dinner, and they ask him to say grace, and he's being thankful for his Xbox and his video games, and then he gets in a fight with his dad, and then he flips over the table with the food. Have either of you seen that video?
I have seen that.
You have?
I'm afraid not.
Okay. Well, did you know that it's completely fake, by the way?
No, really?
Yeah, totally fake. Yeah. So when I was, of course,
So
Googling Bad Thanksgiving, that was like the #1 return for YouTube.
Right.
And there was an article written about it, and it said, this guy, go to his YouTube channel. He actually has a video that he talks about faking all these videos. So it's a completely fake video. So when you first see this video, you're startled, right? I mean, if you remember, I was like, I cannot believe
I totally thought it was real.
That happened.
Yeah.
And why did you think it was totally real?
I mean, it looks authentic, and it's something that we can actually imagine happening, right?
Yes, like it was very well staged, staged. Not beyond reality of situations that people have been in over Thanksgiving where somebody gets in an argument. Granted, flipping over the table with all the food is very extreme, but in today's world, what is that? It's not possible. It's not probable, but it is possible that something like that could happen.
Sure.
And we know what's going to happen on Thursday morning. It's probably going to start happening Wednesday night. You're going to start seeing all the social media posts. This is what I'm thankful for.
Yes.
And then you'll see all the memes. Happy Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. I actually have difficulty following social media during Thanksgiving and Christmas and the other major holidays because of the lack of the original creativity that people use with their posts. It's just all the same stuff.
It is. It's all the same stuff. And let's not forget the latest trend, which is on Thanksgiving Day, which is showing yourself by 3 o'clock in the afternoon in line at a store because Black Friday has now somehow taken over Thanksgiving as well.
And it's backed off, too. I've seen a lot of stores back off their Thursday openings.
There's been a lot of pushback. It infuriates me, to tell you the truth. I think it's wrong on every level.
Yeah, and there's so much pressure for the shoppers to get out there and hit those deals early on.
Yeah.
And these are all things that just add stress to the holiday. Because when we did go to social media, what's one thing you're not looking forward to? Everyone listed something that causes stress in their life, whether it be the travel. A lot of people talked about seeing the family, being convicted by family, that if you're single, where's your significant other, by yourself again, getting into some of these issues that I saw a website. It was the 19 things about Thanksgiving that are actually the worst from bustle.com. There were 5 that were specifically around people, and but there was plenty of other things for us to be stressed out because it's not really a restful holiday for most people.
It's not. And when you talk about restful, I go back to our show a few weeks ago was about introverts, remember, versus extroverts. So for all of my fellow introverts out there, it's tough to be on, especially if you're the host. It's tough to be on for a whole day like that, especially around a large group, some of which you'd probably rather not be around.
Yeah, I'm going to bring this up again because I know we have people coming in and out of the show whenever they listen to it on the radio and whatnot, but something that I want to establish very clearly is that maybe you're not the person that doesn't look forward to Thanksgiving for a reason or two. Maybe you love Thanksgiving. It is your holiday, and you have a wonderful time during this holiday. That does not mean that everyone around you feels the same way. If what we are talking about today you think may not apply to you, perhaps there are others around you that do feel this way, and you are the catalyst to make a difference in someone else's experience or life during Thanksgiving. Because, well, why are we even talking about this? For many, this is the one time of the year you really connect with family, like the one time. Because Christmas can tend to somewhat be a divisive holiday, especially if you have kids, because people want to kind of stay home for that holiday. Thanksgiving is that one moment of the year where you have an opportunity to really either strengthen a strong family, strengthen a strong relationship, or repair something that has gone a little awry somewhere in your life. And then, of course, you also have an opportunity to take something that's average and great and really screw it up and blow it up. Okay, let's not avoid that. Can happen to any of us at any time. We've got some advice for you later on in the show around how to avoid some of those things. But it's if you're of the mindset that you're just trying to get through it, that's sad. That saddens me that you're like, I just can't wait until Black Friday because I don't have to be around family that day.
And a lot of people are like that. So let me ask you, what is JJ's personal experience and outlook on Thanksgiving?
All right. So, what should I say on live radio?
Come on. We've said we're going to put it all out there.
Yeah, we are. So, I love my mother-in-law, Tina. I love her. And she's very brutally honest. So I put this thing out on Facebook of what's the one thing you're not looking forward to Thanksgiving. And she commented on it, spending time with family because I just want to be alone. So I got to talk to her about this on Thursday. I'm not sure if she was being honest or just pulling my chain a little bit.
That'll be a fun conversation.
So even the host of the show gets a little gets a little in the midst of this whole topic.
Yeah.
Because in every family, there's always some sort of dynamics. My wife grew up with a sister and a mother, so there's 3 women that you would expect the normal challenges of women growing up with each other. I already see it with Sam and Millie. There's that feminine resistance of growing up, and these things I think carry on, and I see that with dads and sons too. Not as much I think older as I do younger, like that whole the young man trying to leave the household mentality of growing up and pushing back on mom and dad, specifically dad, in those kind of situations. And all those kind of dynamics, I think, show up in our holidays to some. I mean, for the most part, though, our Thanksgiving is very normal, very average. We have a good time. There's never been an argument. There's never been craziness. There's never been a desire to, at least on my part, to leave quickly. But I'm sure there's been on someone's part. Yeah. I'm sure. Because most of us avoid it, right? If we even sense it, we avoid it, and we tend to talk about those people behind their back. In those situations where you're at with Thanksgiving, where you may be that kind of person that you're just trying to get through it. But then whenever you leave, you're looking at your spouse going, oh my gosh, can you believe he said that? Oh, honey, oh my gosh, aren't you glad that we left? That's our natural reaction to these situations. Actually, if you're doing that after Thanksgiving, you're probably also doing that. You're probably also doing that at work.
Yes, and you're probably doing that in a lot of places in your life.
Yeah, which is very dangerous. And I put a quote out on Facebook yesterday. Also, I keep saying Facebook, but it ends up on all social media. It says, surround yourself with people that are talking about vision and goals, not other people.
Yeah, I like that.
I loved it. And it's been lit up on Facebook. And it's very difficult whenever we get to Thanksgiving and around people that are in our family, because let's face it, most of the conversations around Thanksgiving with our family are not about vision and goals.
Right.
Very negative. A lot
No.
of negative conversations.
And there's a lot of conversations about the people that aren't at that table.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Quite frankly.
Especially the ones that didn't make it.
Absolutely.
That's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about it's the people who either why they didn't make it or just people that maybe live far away, but all the latest gossip.
Can you believe she went to their house instead of ours? Oh my heavens. Shame on that girl. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Asher's here.
We're against a hard break, but I want you to say something, brother. You got your hand up in the air.
That was the 1 minute warning.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about
I don't know about that, Asher.
When we get back, we're going to talk about why Asher was really holding that finger
Asher's sweating over here.
He
I'm
told
not
us
sure.
before the show started that
I think we hit a nerve.
This one really applies to him. So you asked me about my situation. I asked you about your situation. When we get back, we're really going to find out some things going on with Asher and his situation. Today, we're talking about no Thanksgiving for those folks that have no thanks to celebrating the holiday or you don't look forward to it as much as you should. And if you don't feel that way, you're probably spending it with someone that does, and that's why we're here today. You're listening to The Great People Show.
I want something just like this.
I highly recommend playing this beat on Thanksgiving. Play that beat on Thanksgiving.
It's
Highly
all that
recommend
plays
it.
in my car.
I mean, when your family gets over, just forget the Christmas music. Just play that theme.
Yeah,
Just get it jacked up.
People have been asking when the Great People Show soundtrack is going to hit the stores.
If you had a rave at your house during Thanksgiving, that would totally lighten the mood. Grandma might break it out too. You never know.
Probably so.
So thanks for listening to the Great People Show. We are talking today about no Thanksgiving for those situations in life, or a situation you might be in life where you're heading into Thanksgiving, you're just not looking forward to it because you should be. And I found a site that says 19 things about Thanksgiving that are actually the worst. And the first one was spending too much time around family, which we have talked about extensively in the first half of our show today. Why we are avoiding that, why we are not wanting to be around that, which leads us to the next one, for family fights. Matt just said on Facebook, politics is a forbidden topic at my in-laws' house, and it makes for a very harmonious day. Well, love the ground rule. Love the ground rule. Somebody's got to set the rules during Thanksgiving, I believe. And right now, if there aren't any, politics, religion, all these other things really start to cause havoc
Probably
during Thanksgiving.
So can I make a confession?
Confess.
I am usually the person who starts said political conversations at the dinner table.
Why?
Because I enjoy talking about it, and because most of the people at our table are usually of the same mindset. This year, we happen to have a couple who are very much on the opposite mindset, so I probably will refrain this year because my cousin especially will get very emotional.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen tears in the past.
Oh, dear.
But otherwise, if it's all people of the same political mindset, especially right now, JJ, with what we're going through, I don't care what your political affiliation. It is it's an interesting thing to talk about.
Well, and here's a problem I have with that. If everyone is of the same political affiliation, why is that healthy? Like I don't want to talk about, even if I'm surrounded by people that have all the same thoughts as I have, they voted the same way, they believe the same thing. I think it just triggers parts of our mind that's unhealthy.
And you're probably right. I think that for a lot of us, if you've been talking about Uncle Bob's, kidney stone that he passed last month, it can be an interesting change of subject,
Yeah. Maybe that's one thing we need to use as a diversion topic. Let's talk about Bob's kidney stone for a minute. All right. So we do have a caller on here this morning, Maurice in Richmond. Maurice, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. So I was saying that I was on a site and I was trying to get in Facebook Live, couldn't figure it out on the topic, and I just started thinking through it.
Good.
And I think personally, I'm thankful for Thanksgiving, thankful for the time, thankful for everything that I have.
Good.
But I honestly think what I've been struggling with is not so much my own personal situation, my family, but this kind of concern for the broader society. I think it's I'd heard you talk about coming up from a difficult childhood and some challenges, and I was listening to the Resilient show and the lady that was on, and I grew up kind of a sketchy situation, and so I have an awareness, I think, that is maybe not typical in my zip code, but I definitely have an awareness for people with lack, and it's hard for me to kind of find the space where I'm really thankful and grateful, but at the same time aware of that struggle and the need that's out there. And I definitely think that one of the things that I've tried to do in the past is kind of to numb that is, charity donations and things. But as I'm kind of just getting ready to call in, I started thinking about how do I fill that hole as far as because just writing a check, I don't think does it.
No, it doesn't.
And then I started thinking about maybe, as big as the problem is that, I'm just talking through this, but maybe one of the things to do is you got to get involved personally. You got to, I'm grateful for the work that I have, but I wouldn't say that it's, I feel like it's kind of a utility function, and I don't really, not changing lives. I'm not really impacting the world. So I don't get that sense of contributing or creating that I think everybody needs. And anyway, so that was my thought: is what's the problem? How do we get there? And I thought, and I'm talking a lot here.
No, Maurice, can we talk more about your situation? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So you mentioned that you don't feel like you're really having much of an impact on the world as much as you'd like to have in that creative zone. With where you're at in your life, do you feel like that you're comfortable in your job, you're an expert in what you do, that you're really good at it?
I think I'm pretty good. I think I'm pretty good at the people side of what I do.
So what I think,
and that's a big chunk of it.
Yeah, what I think that you might be experiencing or realizing is that there's something that you're beyond great at. There's something that's I mentioned this book on last week's show, The Big Leap, and he calls it your genius. And I think that's what's missing. And I'm also sensing that one of the things that's keeping you from that is whatever's happened in your past is still there. It's still holding that upper limit for you. It's still holding you back from being able to go after what it is that you're trying to go after. And I also wonder in this holiday season, as you go into Thanksgiving, you sound like a reflective guy, that if you go into this holiday and you start to realize, I have a whole lot to be thankful for, because I hear that in your voice, that you have so much to be thankful for, but there's still something missing in your life. And if you're like most people, even like me, I think it's hard for me to truly be completely thankful whenever I feel like there's still something missing. And that is something that wears on me personally. And I'm curious if you feel similar to that.
There's definitely something missing.
Yeah.
I think when I was in my 20s, I took a leap into a crazy startup and lived like a monk with a vow of poverty, when the .com thing was really popping off, and I was in the wrong space, the wrong place, the wrong time.
Yeah.
Well, the right time, I should say. So, in going through that and then coming out of that and kind of within a short order, a couple of years having a family and then a growing family to take care of, there's that entrepreneurial hole, I guess you would say, that I haven't been able to fill. And no matter how creative I've been or whatever success I've had, there's always that gap. But at the same time, balancing it with the reality of taking care of a family, which you're very thankful to be able to take care of. And when I see them comfortable and not having needs and not experiencing life the way I did, it's very hard for me to take the risks that I think the type of person that I am needs to take.
Do you have any sense of what you really want out of life beyond what you have?
I do.
What is that?
I think it's to be more focused on writing. It's funny. I've had people. I think the first thing that I think one of the time my mother told me, she said, "You're going to be a writer," and that came out of nowhere, and I didn't know where she got that from, and I didn't have a good childhood. We didn't have a good relationship. So there was a little bit of part of me that I think didn't want to be a writer. And then, I just kind of blocked that out. And years later, over time, I'd could write little things here and there, and people would suggest me to write about this and write about that. And I never really thought about it. And then at one point, I'd done some writing for a show, and some people were involved in the entertainment industry, and it went over really well. And I just kind of backed away because it was a political thing involved. It really turned me off, and then I backed away. And now I've been kind of trying to pursue that, and I feel like that's a little bit more the direction that I should be going. And and it doesn't necessarily mean one type of writing or another, but it's in the creative space.
Well, Marty, thanks for calling the show. We're getting ready to hit a soft break here, but we're going to talk about you behind your back. So make sure you catch the show here after you let go. Thanks for calling.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So this is something that I talk with a lot of people about, and this does feed very directly into our topic because we said earlier, Thanksgiving is not a time off for a lot of people. It actually is more intensive. What Marty needs to do, Marty has a family. He said he has a family. Maurice says he has a family. He probably doesn't take nearly as much time, if any time, for himself to explore what he needs to do to get into this other level of what they said in this book, genius. I don't necessarily like that word, but it's certainly beyond your expertise, and it's clawing at his heart. It's clawing at his heart. He needs to find some time during this restful holiday to go out and do some writing.
This restful holiday.
It's got to be restful. And you are not going to do this naturally. You're not going to do it naturally. Maurice is not going to just all of a sudden find himself with a pocket of time and be like, oh my gosh, I get to go right now. First of all, he may just go and breathe.
Right.
But the fact that he needs to go and do something that is at another level of existence for him is not something that people think about. In fact, most people, if they get some time off, they go, I'm going to go watch a football game.
Right.
I'm going to go rake some leaves. I'm just going to go and escape a little bit. That we don't actually take as much control over our life as we should. We let other people control our time in our lives.
Absolutely. And, I learned a tough lesson this week about that, JJ, where I all of a sudden, I wasn't in jail, but I had my freedom taken away from me.
Well, you told me you're in the hospital, and I saw the meal that you texted me, but without more context of the photo, it could have been a jailhouse meal. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get James to confess that he was in prison last week during the show, and we're gonna hear Asher's story. We're not letting him off the hook, so hang in there with us. You're listening to The Great People Show. All right, everyone, welcome back. James and I are just sitting here chilling, and all of a sudden the rave music comes on, the lights go out, the flashing light bulbs go on, the disco ball. All right, Asher, I was almost going to forget again. What do you do for Thanksgiving, and maybe what's one thing you don't look forward to? I can't believe we're putting all this on the radio, but I love it.
All right, JJ.
Lay it out.
One thing I don't look forward to, and what do I do for Thanksgiving? Okay. You put me on the spot. I remember when we used to get in trouble, and my mother would tell me I was going to get a spanking, and we were somewhere else, and then I would hope for the entire day that she would forget, and then she'd get home, and then I'd try to mosey up to my room.
So are you using the analogy that I'm spanking you on the radio right now?
I might be.
This is a kid-friendly show, Asher. What we do in our personal lives is not meant for the air.
Oh.
So before the show started, you said this show really applies to me. Why'd you say it?
Like you mentioned, where family is where the most conflict is. It's the family, the people that how messed up they are. We're all,
Well, who's messed up in your family?
Well, I think we're all messed up a little bit.
He's avoiding the question here.
I'm giving you more of a generalization.
So, I first want to say, what are the chances of someone in your family listening to the show? But as we found out a few weeks ago, your stepsister grew up in Roanoke, and we went to the same middle school.
Yes,
so
but she doesn't contact me unless a liberal wins an election near me. So.
This world is way too small.
It is.
So what will you do differently? Are you heading to South Carolina?
I think so. Last year I didn't,
think
and
so.
I
Dude,
actually
it's Tuesday. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, and I have all this work, so I have to find out how the work lines up. So, but
Okay. You start driving.
yeah, I got a really nice text from somebody the other day, which was really heartwarming, and he said, teach me whatever you need to teach me. I want you to be able to go home and see your family for Thanksgiving, and that was like probably one of the nicest things somebody's done for me in a while. So,
well, you obviously want to see your family.
yes, I
What
do.
makes it tough though? Like we're talking about no Thanksgiving here. What makes it tough to see the family at Thanksgiving?
Past conflict makes it tough, and the other thing that makes it tough is we're not really warm and fuzzy family. And I'll say, in this context, you had mentioned that Black Friday takes over. I mean, essentially, we have a meal, and then everybody goes and they break out to the newspapers, and tries to find out what's going on. And the entire time after we eat is 100% planning for Black Friday. And my sister's never been one to hang around long, so she generally goes off to someone else who goes to Black Friday shopping with her.
Yeah.
And then that's it. So it's just, sit down, you have a meal, you pray, you talk, and then that's it. So somewhat uneventful.
I saw this quote. Maybe it applies to you in your situation, Ashinator. Another fun side effect of having every member of your family in a single room is that everyone gets to remember every single way every other family member has ever slighted them and then struggle to repress it for the duration of a 5-hour dinner. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. The oppressed anger.
So you're saying we should just start throwing food at one another? Don't repress it. Just let it go.
Well, back to this website of 19 things about Thanksgiving that are actually worst. Well, you could.
Food fight.
Just get it on video because we want the real deal this time.
Food fight, yeah. Okay. Not a fake one, but
not
a
a
real
fake one.
one.
One of
Okay.
these was making small talk with random family members. Like that shallow small talk that you would have at a networking event that you don't know how to have a real conversation with someone because you don't know them, which I find this interesting because if it's family members, you'd think you'd be able to at least dig up something that's more meaningful to talk about.
And I'll tell you, JJ, I went through this course. It's an amazing course. And one of the first things that I learned in this course is don't condemn, criticize, or complain. It changed my world.
Yeah.
Changed my interaction with my family. So it's not as bleak as it would have been without that one principle. You know what that course is, JJ?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Okay.
I've heard of it. They have great ads.
Yes, they do.
On
They do.
WNTW.
Yeah, so I'm equipped. I feel equipped to go there just with
I
that
like
one
word, equipped.
just with that
James
one
James
thing,
is
that
dying
one
to
principle.
say something over here, James.
No, not at all. It's but you talked about when you hit that awkward pause where people you don't know what to talk about, and you end up talking about things that are gonna tick people off.
Yeah.
The easiest thing to do, JJ, and it's funny, it's even in our show notes here today, is to just turn to the person across the table and say, "So JJ, what's been going on in your life lately?"
Yeah.
People love to talk about themselves.
They do.
If you hit that awkward pause, find a random person at the table who might be the most interesting out there and just ask what's been going on. You could fill the entire dinner going around the table with just everybody talking about what is new in their life, and you would probably avoid all controversy.
The more you let people share about themselves, the simpler the whole situation would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we internalize that resistance, especially if it's around politics or even something as simple as someone in your family loves the Patriots and you're a Steelers fan. Not that would ever happen to me.
No.
That you just use this opportunity to vent on this person. We have some tips for you just to make Thanksgiving more meaningful with others, because this show is about you being better and making the situation around you better, and also being able to confront those upper limits that you may have. And a big reason we have arguments or don't want to connect deeper with our family members is because of those upper limits. Mm-hmm. The first step in this process, really nothing else is going to work unless you change your point of view on the family members that you think negatively about. And there's a spectrum of negativity, right? On one end of it is you feel they are the worst human being on earth for the horrible things that they've done to someone else you love, right? That would be one end of that negative feeling that you have with someone. And then on the other end, you're thinking, this person's really never amounted to anything in their life. I'm disappointed in them. And there might be actually something lighter than that's negative, such maybe the shallow negativity, right? I can't believe they voted for so and so.
I say political beliefs.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that is meaningless to you.
Yep.
All right. Why do you even care?
Because it canceled your vote.
Exactly. That's what I've always thought. It's like when I'm the common denominator, there's only so many votes I can cancel out.
That's right.
But it means nothing. And your negative point of view on your family member means nothing.
Yep.
It's ridiculous to wind yourself up and wind them up on how you feel towards someone else. Mm-hmm. It's their life, right?
Yes.
And we are not the judge. We are not the judgment. And for Pete's sake, please don't do this during Thanksgiving. Find another time if you want to get something off your chest.
Yep.
Don't do it here. And we talked earlier about this meaningless small talk. Turn that into something more thought-provoking and meaningful. I remember my brother-in-law was a home builder on the other side of the state here in Virginia. And during the recession, when the construction was really tough, I really cherished the moments that I could talk to him about how you dealing with the job. How he had to lay off all of his employees, right? Mm-hmm. I use that as an opportunity to say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
What's how are you overcoming your struggles? He never asked me for advice, but when you create these types of conversations with someone where you really care about someone's current situation, that's a great time to give them some advice, just encouragement, maybe not advice, but give them some encouragement about what's going on in their life. Yeah, just showing them love. It's like, so my challenge for you, our listener, is pick a family member that you're going to be interacting with sometime over the next several days, specifically because of the Thanksgiving holiday, and have a more meaningful conversation with them. Maybe you purposely find yourself in a room with them and you just simply say, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite, and this has to match your personality, but one of my favorite follow-up question is, no, how are you doing? I don't mean that, how's it going? How you doing, right? How are things going in life? I mean, look at them and say, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. I want to know how you're doing with care and love. And you know how you can really take this challenge to another level? Do it with someone that you feel like you haven't gotten along with for a while.
Mm. So of that person, what percentage of the time do you think you're going to get an honest answer?
Well, the first answer, probably not.
Yeah. I'm good.
Things are great.
You're good.
Things are great. And our natural, I think for many people, our natural instinct on this is to give up because we don't want to talk to that person or not talk to them much. And especially if they're not much of a conversationalist.
Yep.
We just let it go. Okay, well, they don't want to talk to me. Well, who's in charge here? You're in charge of you. Keep them going. Keep them into the conversation.
Well, and I think what makes that tough, JJ, is often, you go back to Uncle Bob. We all have those family members that, frankly, we don't have anything in common with.
And for the listeners that may just be tuning in, that's Uncle Bob, the raging drunk.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. But no, we have these people who we don't have anything in common with, and it's a lot more difficult. We've talked about this before, to have a conversation with someone that you can't find any common ground with. You can't find any similarities with. And I think that's what can make these things awkward as well.
And I think our perception of what these conversations even should be are a little messed up, is if we have to do all the talking.
Yeah.
Stop using I, me, and we. So I had a client, gosh, this might have been last year. Maybe it was earlier this year, I think, because he was going with family to another city for spring break with his family to his wife's extended family. And we were just having this conversation, and I gave him the advice. It's like, when you get there, just listen to how people respond to other people. Meaning, if somebody says, well, I did this, listen very carefully. If someone says, well, I did that, well, then I did this, right? If people are always responding with a comment about themselves using the I, me, and we, that is someone that's coming from a selfish point of view. Okay, so what's the alternative to that? Well, you stop listening to respond, and you start listening to understand, which is, really, tell me more about that. Or what was that like? Or why did you do that, right? See that is being a great conversationalist. That's the one that enable someone to keep talking about themselves. Because we said it earlier. People love to talk about themselves, and they usually find it very easy to talk about themselves. So ask them questions that you feel it's easy for them to answer. Then you can start getting into more meaningful conversation.
So with the 2 minutes that we have left, can I ask a tough question then?
Sure.
When we don't care about the answer, how do we make it appear like we do?
Well, one of my favorite quotes is from Dale Carnegie. He said, "If you act enthusiastic, then you'll be enthusiastic." You have to put yourself into a situation where you may not literally care, but it's not until you get into that situation that you'll really truly find out if you care or not. Because we've already tricked ourselves into thinking we don't care.
Yeah.
It's trickery. That is total trickery, that we don't care about what our family member. We should be at a state of being that everyone around us has some meaning in our life. That if anybody listening right now says, "Well, I have people I just don't care to talk to," that's your problem.
Yep.
That's not their problem. That's your problem. That is an upper limit you've put on yourself. That is probably reflective of other upper limits that you've put on yourself.
Probably so.
And why'd you think that was tough?
Well, I think it's tough because you don't want to come across as you're patronizing people, JJ. And I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve.
Yeah.
And if I ask a question, and I hate small talk, we talked about this whole introvert thing. So if I'm making small talk with a family member and I'm asking them questions that I genuinely don't care about the answers to, and I sound like a horrible person right now, how do I not appear that way to them?
Yeah. Well, you got to get your heart right. You
I
got to
do.
get your heart right.
And that's a whole nother episode.
And it is. And this last piece of advice that I had written down for these tips for Thanksgiving, which is maybe tough for that point of view you're coming from, is to be yourself, right? That doesn't mean you say negative things as soon as they come into your mind, but oftentimes we try to pretend to be somebody that we're not during Thanksgiving because of the expectations that other people have put upon us.
Right.
So as we go into this Thanksgiving holiday, try to not make it a no Thanksgiving holiday. Not only just be thankful for everything you have, but if you pay more attention and you put your heart into the people around you, that'll not only change your life, but it'll actually make it more meaningful. And people might actually look forward to this holiday more next year. So we want to thank you for joining us here. Everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving. James, have a great Thanksgiving.
You too, buddy.
Asher, I don't care what kind of negativity that you find in South Carolina, buddy. I still want you to have a great Thanksgiving, okay?
Thank you.
We love you all.
And we'll see you next Thursday.
See ya!
I want something just like this.
Thanks for joining us. Tune in to The Great People Show again next week, Thursdays, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.